How you doing, guys? Today I thought I'd start a little discussion about a Fairbanks Recoil. The reason why is they were used both on RJs, wheel horse RJs and Panzer tractors, so long as they had a Clinton engine on them. This is the recoil that's going to be put on the Panzer. I thought I'd give an exploded view of what it looks like, all taken apart, and then also I'll have a little put it all back together section to this. First thing, disassemble it. It's pretty self-explanatory. The only thing you need to do is when you unwind the spring, you unwind it completely before you actually pull the rope pulley out of it. It's pretty simple. I'll show you how I put it back together. It's just taking it apart is in reverse. One thing I do is, as you can see, I put some wire ties around it, so that way it just doesn't, bird's nest on me when I actually pull it out of the housing. But that is the recoil spring. It's still in pretty good shape. The end of it's real nice. The hook end that locks it into place, that's still real nice. Totally cleaned all the parts. I glass beaded the housing itself, the inside of the housing, as well as this is a retaining ring that actually retains it to the leg. Here's the leg section of the recoil. This is the rope guide that screws into the housing right in this position. Obviously the pull handle. This one's not an original Fairbanks pull handle. This is actually off a Clinton recoil, because this is an old Clinton pull handle. It's still in real good shape, just going to reuse it. No point in getting another one. Obviously you have your rope. This is the pulley that actually retracts the rope itself. We have the locking paw system. This is what actually swings out when you pull the rope that locks into the starter cup. Obviously the starter cup in the screen, it's Fairbanks specific. These are these friction washers. This is what actually causes this to throw out. There's a tensioning spring that keeps the paws to the body. The retaining washer that holds all of it together. And then obviously an E-clip to snap it all together. In a nutshell, that's all the required parts of a Fairbanks. Next, I'm going to start putting it back together. Okay, well, the first thing I do is trim the wire ties off, and to kind of pull on the spring so you can get it as small as possible. Therefore you can snake it into the housing itself. This can be a little cumbersome, but there's a peg right there at the bottom, right here. We're going to hook that on the peg very carefully. Might have to get out of frame here. Shove this thing. Of course, it's not small enough to fit inside the housing yet, so this is the one part I absolutely hate. It's just such a pain in the ass just to get this thing to work. You gotta kind of manhandle the spring, but you don't want to manhandle it too much because you don't want to ruin it. Because at the end of the day, if it's good, you want to try to save it. If you buy a new one or have to buy a new one, you're just going to run into the same problem. Alright, so there. Whoa, wait a minute. Hang on. Think there. Alright. And then let it gently swing back out. Let it kind of, there we go. Let it swing out so it's nice and even all the way around. Make sure you have the orientation correct, because we want it to wind in this direction, because ultimately we want the rope to recoil back in. So make sure you have the correct orientation, or you're going to have to pull it back out and redo it all. Okay, next, the next thing we want to do is we want to set the rope pulley, okay, in the housing with the spring. This is also a little bit of a tricky situation, because if you notice right here we have like this half moon shape with an opening at the top, and essentially what we need to do is we need to get that hook of the spring right there hooked into one of the slots here. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to drop it down on there. I'm going to have to get a little screwdriver and kind of finagle this thing into place, so when it actually seats itself, that hook of the spring is actually in the slot. One thing I'm going to do before I put it back together is I'm going to put a little bit of grease on the post itself. I'll put a little grease on the post and a little bit of grease right here on the base. Not a ton, just a little bit, just to keep it lubed up, so that way this pulley doesn't have any drag on it. It'll, when you pull on it, it'll, start the engine real good, but then it'll retract real bad. This kind of takes some time. It's not very difficult, but it is a little time consuming, because you got to kind of get everything all lined up, and really to get the camera in there to take a picture of what I'm doing is, well, I can't do it. So I'm going to go off camera, put that thing on. I'm going to grease this up real quick, get that on, and then we'll do the wind up. Okay, I got it back together. It actually, I know there's no way to prove it, but it actually went together really fast, which I can't believe. But big thing is, all I did was I just used a long screwdriver, just slipped it in underneath it. Oh, sorry. Just slipped it into there just before it's going to seat, just to push that hook of the spring into the slot. And that's it. So it's in. And if I yank on the recoil, I can definitely feel tension springing it back. Now, how much to do this? To be honest with you, I don't know. I just do it by feel. I just kind of wind this thing up, making sure it stays seated. You don't want the spring to kind of flip up or something to that effect. So what I do is, I'll swing it over to this position so it kind of locks itself, in the pegs. And then I'll keep testing it. I'll wind it up a couple more times and I'll pull on it gently to just make sure that there's a reasonable amount of throw back into the recoil. So, I mean, really, that's it. I mean, I don't have any particular, I don't do it 30 times and that's fine. I just wind it up, test the feel, feels good, then I leave it. If it doesn't feel good, wind it up a couple more times, test it, see if it feels good. If it's too tight, obviously let a little tension out till I feel that it feels right. Okay, next on, I'm going to finish tensioning up the spring off camera, and then we're going to put the mounting ring on. Alright, because I try to keep my videos as real as possible, I forgot to do something, and that was to install the rope guide before we put the pulley and rope handle in place. And the reason for that is it's a pretty tight fit. So now, even though I have, actually let's show it, there it is. Even though I have it all wound up real nice, I'm going to have to kind of gingerly get this thing started without releasing the stupid rope. So kind of holding it over to the side and then installing the screw. Oops, again, forgot to do, you know what, I was going to put a little grease on that, but forget it. It'll just spin fine. So I'm going to get it started with this screw. Just snug it down. I'll tighten it up in a few minutes, but I just want to get that into place before we move on to the next, which is the mounting ring. The mounting ring, which is right here, okay? This is what allows us to attach the legs. Well, this ring kind of holds everything together, and then the legs over there, which I'll pull out in a second, it all kind of holds everything down, and it gives you the ability to mount it. So this is what we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our screws ready. There are 4. Actually, there's where it is. There it is. There's the 4th one. You're going to use these 4 screws. They are self-drilling, but it's already been used, so we don't have to worry about that. This portion is where the rope handle goes into, so we've got to make sure we have it in this position. Plus it has the provisions for the legs. So let's mount this up. First thing to do, pull your rope, line up the pegs. There's those 2 pegs. You got to line them up with those 2 little dots there. Probably have a little bit too much tension right now, but let's get that thing. All right, there. Now that we have that in place like that, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our legs right here, drop them on. You got a little bit of tension here, so you got to kind of play with it a little bit. Just keep it straight. Get one of our screws started. Once we get the screws started, we're safe. Nothing's going to come flying out at us or anything to that. You do want to be a little, Jesus, you want to be a little careful with it. What the? Fangul, this fucking thing. It's because the camera's on. I got the pressure, so. Plus I got the wrong size screwdriver. I got this stupid long screwdriver. There we go. I don't want to cross thread those threads, you know. I want to make sure that I got threads lined up as good as possible. And this thing is just not lining up for me at all. There we go. Alright. Finally. There we go. Alright, now I got one of the screws in. So I'm not even going to tighten it down. I'm just going to put it to the base of the screw, so that way it doesn't come flying apart on me while I do this. There. Alright, now there we go. So the basic recoil, as you can tell, I might have been out of frame, I'm sorry, is all back together. So what we're going to do is we're going to just drop the rest of the screws in. Got 2 more. And then I'm going to test it for functionality. Make sure that it works. Now if it fails and doesn't work, I can always just edit this portion of the putting this thing back together. The reinstallation, refurbishing, whatever the heck you want to call it, because I'm going to take it all apart anyways. So, I mean, that feels pretty good. I mean, that seems to, whoops, I'm kind of yanking. So, I'm happy with that. I'm going to start tightening everything down. I'm going to get the proper screwdriver, tighten down the 4 bolts, and tighten down the guide. And next, we'll put the paw system back in. Okay, one of the final steps is to put the paw system in. What we're going to do is we're going to take one of our friction. This is the back of the friction washer. There is 2 flat sides to the post, and there's 2 round sides that corresponds with the washer. First thing you do is you put a solid washer on. You get yourself a friction disc. Same situation. You have 2 flat sides and 2 round sides. You just line those up. Make sure they're seated all the way to the base. You definitely need to have that. Here is your paws, sorry. They get placed in. There's no corresponding flat sides because these actually have to articulate on the post. Next piece, friction disc, same thing, corresponding sides. slide it into place. Again, you may want to use a screwdriver. Gently press. You don't want to ruin the friction disc. You can get new ones on eBay, but why if you have good ones? Corresponding washer. That goes on next. There is a little bit of grease on this washer, which is not required, so we'll take it off. The next piece is the retaining spring. This is what causes the tension, keeps everything together. This sometimes can be a little tricky because if you have new paws, or friction discs I should say, it might be a little high for the washer, so you're going to have to kind of finagle around with it. Line it up the best you can, like that. Obviously there's a corresponding slot on the top of the post for the E-clip. You're going to line that up a little bit, or the best to your ability. Make sure you're fairly close. Take your screwdriver, start sliding that on. There we go. Without stabbing your hand would be best. This one happens to be fairly tight, so I'm going to need to play around with this a little bit. There it is. There, nice. Make sure that all the tangs of the E-clip are in the groove on the pole. That looks like it's, that one is, and that one is. Okay. First thing you want to do when you test it is yank on the thing, yank on the rope, and make sure the paws actually do swing out. And that looks like I got both of them swinging out pretty good. Now, one thing to keep in mind, sometimes when you first put them together, you'll pull on it and it won't recoil back. It's because everything's kind of like not in its place, but what you're going to do is you're going to hold it, you know, I got, you know, that, watch for your thumb. I've bashed my thumb hundreds of times doing this, but kind of recoil it, let it swing. You know, that seems to be pretty good. And the paws seem to be throwing out quite nicely. So, and it seems to have, I probably could have made this a little tighter, I bet, to be honest with you. But I think once it breaks in, it'll be fine, because it is going to need to go through a little break-in period. Lastly, get a fairly clean paper towel. Get yourself a little brake cleaner. Can't have enough brake cleaner in your garage. And just kind of give it a wipe down. And that really just takes off all your last fingerprints, anything else that might be on it, off. Good catch. And that's it. This recoil is ready to roll. So, there you go. Fairbanks recoil for a wheel horse RJ or a Panzer tractor. Don't forget your cup. This one has some wear in it, but it's not enough to call it unusable. It should work fine. I've used worse ones before. Got the grass screen in place. There we go. One Fairbanks recoil that's been cleaned, glass beaded, greased up, put back together, tension was set, and should be ready for a little action. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Hopefully this is somewhat informative. Oh, I got one other thing to show you. All right, I'll be right back. Bye. Okay, I'm back. Just to keep in the same theme, this is a Fairbanks recoil for a Kohler engine of basically the same vintage. Typically these were found on wheel horse Suburbans, 60s, 61s. You see them on other engines too of the same, but this is a Kohler style Fairbanks. The internals are basically the same kind of retaining system, you know, same. This one here needs to be refurbed. I have a Kohler 9.1 that I'm going to be working on. The paws do swing out, but I just thought I'd show you. That's a Kohler style. This is a Clinton style right here. Essentially they're the same internally, but you know, one's a little smaller for the smaller opening on the Kohler motor compared to what the Clinton used. But just thought I'd show you that for comparison. That is a Kohler. That is a Clinton. All right, well, hopefully, oh, and they use basically the same starter cups. The only difference is the grass screens are different for that one there. But, all right, hopefully you guys found this interesting. I'm sure there's better ways of doing this. I'm not an expert in any way, shape, or form, but it's just a little tidbit on how I kind of put these things together. All right, have a great weekend.